Okay, so in the last last part of the video, there was a problem with the connection with the iPad and laptop, so I couldn't connect. So now I'm gonna continue by drawing this graph that you see on your screen and calculate the elasticity. As you can see, actually you can do this calculation, but to get more familiar with the concept, I'm going to calculate those. For the ones who had some problems, seeing my announcement, okay, I announced that there will be a quiz on November 6th. Okay, there you will have your first quiz on November 6th. Okay, so let's continue. Okay, so let's calculate the elasticity in here. Okay, elasticity in here. Okay, so we had the graph is like this. Okay, so we had this. Okay, so this is Q, this is P. Okay, we have 13 here, 16 here. Okay, so slope of this line is what? Minus 30 over 60 minus 1/2. Okay, now we are going to calculate elasticity from A to B, B to C, and C to D. Okay, elasticity from A to B. Okay, how are you gonna do this? We are gonna calculate this by using midpoint formula. Okay, midpoint formula. This is 20, this is 40. Okay, percentage change in Q divided by percentage change in P. Okay, while calculating the percentage change, we are gonna use the midpoint formula. Okay, so from price 30 to 20, okay, quantities will change from 20 to 0, midpoint is 10, okay, and then price is changing 30 to 20, midpoint is 25, okay. So this is 2 over minus 10 over 25, okay, so 2 times 25 over minus 10, this is minus 5, okay. So from A to B, elasticity is minus 5. Price elasticity of demand is minus 5. It's quite elastic. What we are saying, if this is bigger than 1, we are saying that elastic. Okay, so let's calculate elasticity from B to C. Okay, B to C. Okay, what is the quantity demanded? Again, percentage change in Q divided by percentage change in P. This is 40 minus 20. Midpoint of these is 30. Okay, and the price change. Price is changing from B to C. This is 20. This is 10. Okay, 10 minus 20. Midpoint is 15. Okay, 20 divided by 30 times 15 divided by minus 10. Okay, so this is 2, this is 2, this is minus 1. Okay, in here we have unitary elasticity. This is minus 1. In here we have elastic. Let's see from C to D. Elasticity from C to D. What is it? Okay, percentage change in Q divided by percentage change in P, 0. Okay, so this is 60 minus 40, midpoint of them is 50, divided by, okay, 0 minus 10, Midpoint of them is 5. Okay, 20 divided by 50 times 5 over minus 10. Okay, we have 2 in here, we have 10 in here, minus 1 over 5. Okay, so in this slide, it is reported as positive. Okay, so this is inelastic. Okay, as you have more of the goods, the response to the price decrease is less. Okay, as we move in this direction, what you have more of the quantity demanded. Okay, so as the price decrease the same amount, the response is the response is lower. Okay, so let's continue with our slides. Okay, stop share. Okay, so let me share my screen in here. Okay, share. Okay, so we found the same thing. So the slope along the line is the same, but elasticity is changing along the line. Okay, and then now we are going to look at the relationship between price elasticity and revenue. Okay, so they are related because revenue is the formula for the revenue is P times Q. Okay, and price elasticity is saying you how a change in price affects quantity demanded. Okay, so continuing our scenario, if you raise your price from 200 to 250, would your revenue rise or fall? Okay, so revenue is P times Q. A price increase has two effects on revenue. Higher P means more revenue on each unit you sell. Okay, but you sell fewer units. So higher P, higher price means that lower quantity due to low of demand. Which of these two effects is bigger? Okay, it's gonna lead to answer for revenue change. It depends on the price elasticity of demand. Okay, so price elasticity, the formula for that is percentage change in Q divided by percentage change in P. So if demand is elastic, then price elasticity of demand is bigger than 1. So percentage change in Q is higher than the percentage change in P. Okay, then so if you have a higher P, okay, then your Q will drop more. Okay, which is gonna decrease the revenue. Okay, which is gonna decrease the revenue. Okay, how about if, so for instance, let's solve this one again. Okay, stop share. Okay, I'm gonna share from the other. Okay, share content. Okay, start broadcasting. Okay, okay. Now let's continue by solving this example. Okay, in here, example, this is page 29 in the chapter 5 slides. So you have elasticity as 1.8. Okay, it is given you if P equals 200, Q equals 12. Okay, so if P prime is 250, actually you can find Q prime if you are given the elasticity. Okay, if you are given the elasticity, how are you gonna do this? You are gonna do like this is percentage change in Q. This is Q prime minus 12, midpoint of those 2 points divided by percentage change in P. Okay, should be equal to minus 1.8. Okay, because of the law of demand. Okay, then you can find this Q prime in here. Okay, suppose you find the Q prime as 8. Okay, so this is the elastic example, right? So this is elastic. It is the elasticity is bigger than 1. Then what are you gonna have? Let's look at the revenue. Initial revenue is P times Q as 200 times 12, 2400. Now, after the price increase, 250, what do we expect? After the price increase, there will be decrease in the revenue. Okay, so we have 2000. Okay, so revenue falls as predicted. Revenue falls as predicted. Okay, so let's do the similar example for the inelastic case. Okay, if the demand is inelastic, then percentage change price elasticity of demand is inelastic if this is between 0 and 1. Okay, which means that percentage change in Q should be lower than percentage change in P. So a fall in revenue. So if you increase the price, Q will drop less, okay, which will increase the revenue, So let's do the same thing if for this elasticity of demand. Suppose example, so this time page 31, okay. Suppose price elasticity of demand is 0.82, okay. If P equals 200, we have Q as 12, okay. Suppose price is increased to 250, you can find what will happen to Q prime. Okay, again with the same formula, you're going to write Q prime minus 12 divided by Q prime plus 2 over 2. This is midpoint formula. Divided by P prime 250 minus 200 divided by the midpoint formula should be equal to minus 0.82. Okay, from here, check that you are going to find that or not. You're going to find Q prime as 10. Okay, and then you can calculate the revenue initial. Let's say revenue initial as 200 times 12, 2400. Now revenue later, revenue final as 250 times 10, 2500. As you can see, with the price increase, revenue increase, if the good is inelastic. With increase in P, revenue will increase if the good is inelastic. Okay. Now, let's do some examples from page 32. Page 32, okay. So it is telling you that case 1, pharmacies raise the price of insulin if price of insulin increases by 10%. What will happen to expenditure? What will happen to expenditure? Okay, so expenditure will be the same as revenue, right? Your expenditure is again P times Q. Okay, so the question is asking you revenue versus asking you the expenditure will be the same. Okay, so insulin is a what kind of good? Insulin has an inelastic demand. Okay, so if there is a price increase, quantity demanded will not decrease that much. Okay, so revenue will increase, so same as the expenditure. Okay, so this is the answer for A. B was telling you, as a result of fair war, the price of luxury cruises fall by 20%. Okay, does luxury cruise companies' total revenue rise or fall? What will happen to revenue? Okay, the question is asking you that. So luxury cruise is an elastic good, right? So it's luxury, so you don't need to consume it. If there's a price decrease, Q will increase much more than this P, okay? And which will lead to revenue increase. Revenue will increase as well, okay? So we are, let me check, we are, where are we? Just a second, okay? We are in this slide now, slide 34, okay? So we solved it. And then let's continue, okay? So does drug interdiction increase or decrease drug-related crime, okay? So drugs are what kind of goods? So any good that you have addiction, okay, or anybody that has addiction is inelastic, right? Because whatever the price is, you are likely to consume it, okay? So one side effect of illegal drug use is crime. Users often turn to crime to finance their habit. We examine two policies designed to reduce illegal drug use and see what effects they have on drug-related crime. For simplicity, we assume the dollar value of drug-related crime equals total expenditure on drugs. So demand for illegal drugs is inelastic due to addiction issues. Okay, as I said, any addictive thing will have inelastic demand. Okay, so suppose a interdiction situation. So interdiction reduces the supply of drugs. Okay, how it is going to affect the equilibrium price? If supply decreases, equilibrium price increases, as you see from this slide. Okay, and then okay, so this is the initial supply and demand. Okay, initial value of drug related crime, revenue, initial revenue. What will happen with the interdiction? Okay, supply will decrease. Okay, with the decrease in supply, price will increase, quantity will decrease. Okay, price will increase, quantity will decrease. But since the good is inelastic, Q is not going to decrease as much as the increase in the price. Okay, hence what will happen? Revenue will increase. Okay, so an increase in total spending on drugs and in a drug-related crime. Okay, so after the price increase, so this red area, red and this orange area is the new expenditure on the drugs. Okay, P2 times Q2. Okay, P2 times Q2 is higher than P1 times Q1. Why? Because we know from the price elasticity of demand. Okay, due to inelastic nature of the good, we have steep demand curve, as in here, right? Q is affected less with the price increase. Okay. Now the second dimension is the education. Education reduces the demand for the drugs. Okay. So which is going to shift the demand curve to the left. Okay. Both P and Q will drop. Okay. And a decrease in total spending on drugs and in drug-related crime. Okay. Education is, so what do you say with the policy intervention? So education is more helpful than the first policy. Okay. So now price elasticity of supply. Price elasticity of supply measures how much QS responds to a change in P. Okay. So percentage change in price in the denominator and percentage change in QS is the numerator. So loosely speaking, it measures seller's price sensitivity. Again, use the midpoint method to compute percentage changes. For instance, in here, suppose the price rises by 8%. The response in Q is 16%. So price elasticity of supply, 16% divided by 8%. Okay. So there are a variety of supply curves. The slope of the supply curve is closely related to price elasticity of supply. So This is a similar rule for the demand curve, the price elasticity of demand. The flatter the curve, the bigger the elasticity. Okay, the steeper the curve, the smaller the elasticity. So there are 5 different classifications. So perfectly inelastic case. So in this case, supply is vertical. For any change in price, quantity doesn't change. Okay, so perfectly inelastic supply means that price elasticity of supply is 0. Okay, and seller's sensitivity is 0. Okay, and then for the inelastic price elasticity of supply, so supply curve is relatively steep and seller's price sensitivity is relatively low. If the price rises by 10%, response in quantity supplied will be lower than 10%. Okay, so that elasticity is lower than 1. Okay, in the unit elastics, so supply curve has intermediate slope. Seller's price sensitivity is intermediate. If there is a 10% increase in the price, there will be 10% increase in quantity supplied. Okay, and then price elasticity of supply for the elastic supply curve. Supply curve is relatively flat and seller's price sensitivity is relatively high. If there's a 10% increase in the price, percentage change in quantity will be higher than 10%. Okay, and then elasticity will be bigger than 1. Okay, so supply curve is in the perfectly elastic case. So supply curve is horizontal, seller's price sensitivity is extreme. Okay, if there is a change by 0, Q changes by so elasticity is infinity. Okay, determinants of supply elasticity. The more easily sellers can change quantity they produce, the greater the price elasticity of supply. Example, supply of the beachfront property is harder to vary and thus less elastic than supply of new cars. Okay, for many goods, price elasticity of supply is greater in the long run than in the short run, because firms can build new factories or new firms may be able to enter the market in the long run. Okay, the supply of beachfront property is inelastic and the supply of new cars is elastic. Suppose, so the curves will be how? If it is inelastic, then supply curve is steeper, right? So if it is elastic, supply curve is less steep. Okay, suppose the population growth causes demand for both goods to double. Okay, so you are gonna increase the demand, shift the demand curve. For which product will P change the most? Okay, and for which product will Q change the most? Okay, so beachfront property, as I said, since it has inelastic nature, so the supply curve will be steep. Okay, so when supply is inelastic, an increase in demand has a bigger impact on price than quantity. Okay, so so this is the new demand. Demand shift to the right because population due to population growth. Okay, but since it is inelastic, so quantity supplied respond less, but price increased more. Okay, how about for cars? Okay, when supply is elastic, an increase in demand has a bigger impact on quantity than on price. Okay, so again, suppose demand shift to right due to population growth and quantity increased more than the price. Okay, for the new cars. How the price elasticity of supply can vary? Okay, supply often becomes less elastic as Q rises due to capacity limits. Okay, so what will be the elasticity between these 2 points? So quantity supplied from the initial point to the last point, 200 minus 100 divided by midpoint 150 divided by 4 minus 3 divided by 3.5. Okay, so which has 100 divided by 150 times 3.5 over 1. Okay, so which is 35 divided by 15, which is bigger than 1. So this is elastic. So if you look at the elasticity between these last 2 points, okay, so 525 minus 500 divided by midpoint of them, 512.5 divided by 15 minus 12, midpoint of them, 13.5. Okay, and elasticity is lower than 1 in here. Okay, so other elasticities, income elasticity of demand, so measures the response of QD to a change in consumer income. So we can write it with this formula, percentage change in QD as a response to percentage change in income. Again, for the percentage change, we are using the midpoint formula. Okay, so if this is positive, if demand increases with the income, what are we saying those goods? They are normal goods, okay? If demand decreases with the income increase, we are calling such goods as inferior goods, okay? If this is positive, if the good is normal, and this is negative for the inferior goods, okay? Other elasticities, cross price elasticity of demand, measures the response of demand for one good, changes the price of the other good. So in the denominator, you have percentage change in the price of good 2, and numerator, you are going to have percentage change QD for good 1. Okay, for substitutes, okay, cross price elasticity will be bigger than 0 because an increase in price of beef causes an increase in demand for chicken, right? So an increase in price of beef will lead to a decrease in demand for beef and increase for the demand for chicken, okay? So for the substitute, the price of the good 2 and demand for good 1 has the same sign, okay? For complements, cross price elasticity is negative. An increase in price of computer causes decrease in demand for software, okay? Cross price elasticity is in the news. So you can find examples for the price elasticity. For instance, a gas costs soar, buyers flock to small cars, okay? Gas prices drive students to online courses, okay? Gas prices knock bicycle sales, okay? So each of these are cross price elasticities, right? So the effect of gas prices on the bicycle, demand for the bicycle, etc. Okay, so what we have learned in this chapter, elasticity measures the responsiveness of quantity demanded or quantity supplied to one of its determinants. Okay, so basically we did the price change, but for the demand, we also looked at the income, price of the other good. Price elasticity of demand equals percentage change in QD divided by percentage change in P. When it is less than 1, demand is inelastic. When greater than 1, demand is elastic. Okay. When demand is inelastic, total revenue rises when price rises. When demand is elastic, total revenue falls when price increases. Okay. Demand is less elastic in the short run for necessities, for broadly defined goods, for goods with few close substitutes. And price elasticity of supply equals percentage change in QS divided by percentage change in P. When it is less than 1, supply is inelastic. When it is greater than 1, supply is elastic. Price elasticity of supply is greater in the long run than in the short run. The income elasticity of demand measures how much quantity demanded responds to a change in income of buyer's income. The cross price elasticity of demand measures how much demand for one good responds to changes in the price of other good. Okay, let me know if you have any questions. We are going to solve some questions on on Friday. Okay. Okay.